What's going on, everybody? It's Bobby Balo from Raytown Productions here, and today we're going to do a review on something I'm really excited about. My kind friends at Sonimus sent me a compressor to try out. It's called Tuco, and this thing rocks. It's super punchy, vibey, gooey, crispy. If you've taken a mixing or mastering course with me, you already know that I live for these kinds of compressors. But before I jump in and tell you about all the features and showcase this plugin on a drum bus and also on a bass guitar, I do want to tell you I have a gift for you. In the description, there's a link to download my favorite free plugin guide. So by the end of this video, if you don't decide to buy the Tuco compressor, which you probably should, you can just go and download that guide and it'll give you a big extensive list of all these different free plugins that I use all the time for mixing and mastering music. There's compressors, limiters, reverbs, delays, saturators. I mean, everything is in this guide. Definitely go and grab your copy because I know you're going to love it. The song that I'm going to demonstrate the Tuco compressor on is by a band called Deer Spring. They're out of Washington, D.C. And if you like what you hear, please check out the description for links to their music and support them. Let's talk about this amazing compressor. I love this thing. The first thing you'll notice is that the interface is not overwhelming. It really only has the most important elements that you need in a compressor. So they have the amount knob, and this basically is just setting a threshold for the compressor. So the more the amount you put in, the more it'll bite into the track. You have an output knob, which just adjusts the output volume. The release knob does exactly what it says. It just changes the release, and as you get to larger numbers, it's a longer release, so you can dial in the movement of the compressor this way. And then it has two other features that I absolutely love. One is a mix knob. So this allows you to dial in the exact right amount of compression when you want to add a lot of movement, but still maintain some punch and transient information. So this is essential for drums. And compressors that don't have this are really missing out. And something else that's awesome that I absolutely love that I haven't seen in really any other compressors that I work with is a dry feature. So this allows you to dial in tube style saturation right into the compressor. So again, this is a home run for drums or bass or vocals or anything that you want to add a little bit more grit to, anything that you want to make it sound a little bit more aggressive. This knob just dials in a really nice sound. And finally, there's a few little hidden features I want to talk about. One is this little screw here, which is actually a high-pass filter. So this will let you basically ignore a kick drum or any low-frequency information below about 350 hertz so that the compressor doesn't react to that. So that way, if you have a lot of sub-information, you can still glue whatever that instrument is, but just ignore a lot of that low-frequency stuff. So again, this is great for bass and also drums. Now, something else that I think is critically important, and if you've watched any of my tutorials or taken my classes, you know how much I hound people about this, and that is gain compensated compression. So if you click on the word amount, it actually gives you a menu, and you can enable this auto makeup feature. This adjusts the gain while you dial in the compression. So you're not changing the volume as you get more and more compressed like a typical compressor. Normally, if you use a compressor more and more, the volume turns down. This way, you can dial it up and it doesn't change volume. That allows you to make a better, more objective decision when you're trying to dial in your compressors. You can dial them in way faster, and this is a feature I think should be standard on every single plugin, period. We also have 4 different modes of operation. So up top, we have the first 2 are compressors. The second 2 are limiters. And you can choose from slow and fast attack depending on what you're trying to achieve. I find that for big pumpy drums, we want to have slow attack. If you're trying to lock down something and keep it from jumping out like vocals or something like that, fast attack setting, either compressor or limiter sounds great. And the final thing I want to talk about is up here in this top right corner is another set of options And this is how the plugin will detect the audio. So you can set up as a mono compressor. So if you have a mono track, you probably want to do that. Stereo Vintage basically takes stereo information and adds them together and then uses that to decide when the compression should happen. So it's basically the same thing as linking the left and right sides of a compressor. Stereo Modern is a little bit different. It listens to both the left and right channels independently and then applies the gain reduction to both channels at the same time. So in some circumstances, this can sound a little bit more open to me. And then finally, you have dual mono mode, which basically is like having independent compressors on both the left channel and the right channel. It's only listening to the left channel and compressing only the information that goes over the threshold in that, and then same with the right. This can cause a stereo image that can drift from the center, but in my experience, it really doesn't drift that much. And it can do some cool stuff where the mix might feel a little bit more exciting. So that is another option. I tend to stick with Stereo Vintage or Stereo Modern. Let me play a little bit of this song so you can get a feel for it, and then we'll pull in that compressor and then start showing it off on different groups. So when I mixed this track, I wanted a big, wide open drum sound. I like movement in this style of music, especially in drums, and this Tuco compressor works excellently at adding of glue and movement that this thing needed. So let's just go through some of the settings. I'm just going to dial these in as the song is playing so you can really hear how versatile this compressor is. Here are the limiter settings. So you can really hear how much movement this compressor can add to drums. It's crazy. I love this thing. So let's dial this in so it's not reacting so much to that kick drum. That way we can tuck it into the mix a little bit, but still add this cool, vibey, pumpy thing. So to do that, I'm going to bring in all the other instruments, and then I'm just going to adjust my mix knob and then push this up. I find that the settings for a drum bus compressor that sound best to me are using the compressor setting with slow attack. So let's pull this thing up and get a good groove going. What's really important is to be a little aggressive with this compressor so you can hear the compression, so you can time the release to pump and groove with the song. So we'll do that, and then we'll adjust this mix knob back so we can hide the compression a little bit better, and it's just going to enhance those drums. Right there. Now, if you think it's still pumping too much, especially because that kick drum is hitting hard, let's adjust the side chain to have it ignore a little bit more of that low energy. And then this drive knob just thickens up the drums a little bit more. I really, really like what it does. But we still have this really strong kick drum punch. The snare is super snappy. Man, this thing's a home run. Let's listen to it bypassed. Isn't that crazy? It's so awesome. It reminds me of the analog compressors that I played with at NAMM, which is a very large music conference that's held in LA. And it just has the same kind of feel. And I really haven't had much luck with many other plugins to give it this kind of vibe or movement, but for whatever reason, Sonimus nailed it on this. All right, so let's leave it there. Let's also try it on a bass guitar, because anytime you have these cool Very style compressors, they tend to grab stuff and just lock it in place, but still give it some vibe. All right, so here's our bass track. Let me play just the bass for you. Sounds pretty awesome to me. What I'm noticing is the bass is missing a little bit of fullness to it. Like, I want it to be a little bit more locked in, especially in the upper bass region, the low mids. And that is where this compressor works really, really well. So again, we're going to set it to have auto makeup gain enabled so that we're not fooling ourselves into thinking it sounds worse when we lower the volume from reducing all the gain. And then we're just going to dial in the release again to make sure that it's locked in and vibes right with the music. And then we can dial in these last few settings. So let's do that now. So with the release knob, you can hear when you dial it way up, it like pushes the bass back a little bit. It makes it less aggressive. So we want to keep it a little bit faster here. And I don't really like the sound of it too overdriven. Just a little bit there, I think, is all it needs. But what I'm hearing now is a really, really glued down, locked in bass that is super consistent in the low energy. So let me bypass this so you can hear it. Now, it can be kind of subtle, but that's what I love about this compressor is it doesn't really have like a crazy sound to it when you use it on bass. It just does its job. It goes in, locks in that bass, and that's it. It doesn't do any weird pumping. It doesn't have any weird artifacts or anything. So this is a home run. So let me just play this song with the compressor on both the drum, bass, and the bass, and I'll let you hear for yourself how awesome it is. I think that speaks for itself. So to summarize, if you are looking for a compressor to add movement or vibe or glue a drum kit together, definitely check out the Tuco Compressor. I also really like the way this thing sounds for controlling a bass guitar. It doesn't make it sound squashed or buzzy. It just makes it sit where it needs to be. If you want to check out the Tuco Compressor, I have a link in the description. I'll take you directly to that product page. So go and check that out. And while you're looking in the description, don't forget I have that free guide for you that's going to give you a list of all of my favorite free plugins. With that, thank you so much for your time and attention today, and I'll see you in another video.